Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ryan Ride Mechanic channel. How the heck are you doing today? Alright, on today's video, a lot of you have requested this before, never done anything with it, kind of just tossing around the idea, different ideas of stuff to do, but I wanted to put this out there now. I think it's the right time. So today I want to walk through what it's like to open an amusement park. Let's get into it.
Now get ready, here we go.
Okay, if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. Take a look around. I got plenty of nerdy stuff here. Channel's mainly about how rides work, but every once in a while I'll go into off how ride work topics, and then like this one's going to be more of the amusement park in general. So I get this question a lot. I get, what's it like to open an amusement park, or how do you open an amusement park? What's the process? What's it like in the morning time? A lot of us will go to an amusement park and you don't really know anything. You just stand behind the gates and you're watching rides operate, and then eventually they open the gates and you go in. And you met with either your favorite ride's working, your favorite ride might be down but come up working later on, it might be down the whole day. Don't quite know. So what's the process of doing that, and how does all the other stuff happen at the same time? Well, I'm going to go into that on this video. So let's start out first thing in the morning. I'm going to go through mainly the stuff that I have always been a part of, the way my park worked. It's one of those things, it's like I know it the best. It's very close to the same for a lot of other parks out there, but just like everything in this industry, you can never throw the blanket over it and say it's the same for all the parks. That is never a true statement to say that all the parks do this one way. It's pretty much not the thing. I can say all the parks do this and I will get a ton of comments that my park never did that, my park never did that. Lots of people in the comments down below, they are mechanics themselves, ride operators, engineers, ride engineers. Like, I've got everybody in this channel. So it's a pretty diverse feedback system that I have here. Okay, so my day started off every morning about 3:30 in the morning. 3:30 in the morning, alarm clock go up, make my lunch, make my breakfast, everything else, and I'd head off to work. I had a relatively short commute. It was only about 45 minutes, no traffic, first thing in the morning. So it was a nice little relaxing dark drive into the park. I was always worked the AM crew. I do have experience working the PM crew. Our particular park did not run an overnight crew or a graveyard crew. So when I say day shift, I mean opening the park, and night shift is closing the park. We didn't have anybody there overnight working on the rides, but bigger parks do have people there pretty much 24/7 working on stuff. Mine didn't, so I'm still going to just stick with my example on this one. When I got to the park, the first thing I would do is I would get into my office. Now, when I left the park, I was a supervisor, so I would get into the office and I would start going through emails, and what I would look at first thing is the turnover from the day before. It's like I'm looking for the night shift turnover. The turnover is a critical piece of documentation that most all parks have in some way, shape, or form that says this is what was going on. This is what was happening, and here is what's going on now. So this is going to relay things like the status of projects that might be happening in the shop. There's always something going on in the shop, whether it's building brake brass, rebuilding gearboxes, taking apart roller coaster trains, putting them back together, servicing flat rides, whatever it might be. There's always a project that people are working on, so they turn those projects over, because just because one crew is gone doesn't mean the project comes to a stop. We continue to work on those things throughout the entire time. So I read that turnover, and I start to get the idea of what the night shift was going through before my AM crew comes in and gets there. So this feedback is pretty critical because it paints the picture for me where I want to put my manpower for the day. Now, a lot of parks have crew sizes drastically different. I mean, I could have the same size park where I was at, just in a different state, might have a staff that's literally twice the size. And it's like more power to them, that's great. We operated on a pretty shoestring staff pretty much all the time. One manager put it really well. He says the maintenance department operates lean and mean. That's just the way we are. So it's like, okay. So we would have very minimal people there. It was always a struggle to get stuff open on time pretty much almost every single day. Throughout the summertime, it was a little bit easier. Actually, the winter time was the hardest time. So what I would do is I would look at my staffing levels. I say, who do I have in today? Do I have all my normal mechanics in today? If it's during the summertime, I'm like, who is on their days off today? So I try to match that crew that I have with what the park is doing. So when the turnover says, hey, we had all these problems with this ride. Well, if I've got someone in my crew that was really good at that ride, I'm going to make sure that they're going to go to that ride, and I'm going to tell them to go to that ride first thing and give it an extra really good look over and see if they can find out what's going on. I'm going to pick their brain just a little bit and say, here's the symptoms, here's the problems that they're having, what do you think that might be? Mechanics, especially if it's their primary ride, a primary mechanic was what we call them, is the mechanic that's in charge of that equipment most of the time. So for instance, out of a 5-day work week, which is very typical, it's like if you worked on the floorless roller coaster for 5 of those days, 2 days off, someone else would step in and take care of that roller coaster on your 2 days off. Hopefully, they knew what they were doing really well and can maintain it at the same attention level that the primary mechanic did. But anytime there's something wrong with that ride, something's going on, there's something wearing out unusually fast for some reason, I'm going to go to the primary mechanic for each ride and ask them what's going on and get the inside scoop of like, hey, what's happening with this thing? And they might say, oh yeah, this has been going on. This has been wearing out. I'm not sure why this is happening, but it's starting to happen more. And then we can kind of start to spitball ideas, even if it might be with the rest of the crew in a morning time meeting scenario. But we can get that out there. So got my crew looking at my plans, what's going on for the day. I put everything out there. It's like, okay, the next thing I would do as a supervisor, I'd take a little bit of time before the crew came in, and I would go around and I would unlock infield gates. Now, this is kind of a weird thing to say, because I used to work for, it's kind of a weird thing to say, because where I worked, we had 2 sets of locks on each infield gate where it led to a low spot. We had a standard padlock that was on there that pretty much everybody had the key for in the maintenance department, and we had a red lock that was on there. That was only something that supervisors had a key for. So the red locks had to be opened up to allow the employees access to the inside of that infield area. Now we kind of played this little gray area in there because I would go around and I would open the red locks on all the equipment to make sure that the employees were able to go in there, but the employees couldn't take off the other lock until the ride was locked out per our procedures to go into that area. So it was kind of like a time-saving balance because they wouldn't have to rely on me later on in the morning to call me up in the middle of whatever I was doing to go out to the ride to unlock an infield gate. So I'd unlock infield gates real quick, come back to the shop. The crew was pretty much at the shop. Now, when it comes to the crew, we always required that once the day started, and we started our day at about 5 a.m., so once the day started, they are required to be in uniform with keys, radio, their tools, everything they needed by about 5:15. Now, when I first started working there, there was no questions asked. You had to have all that stuff ready at 5. But then they pulled it was like, well, if you're asking us to get ready and be ready to work at 5, that means we actually have to get ready for work at 4:45. And then there was a time issue there. Being from California, it's like that was a pretty big deal. So it's like, okay, so they moved everything back. So the morning meeting took place, and then basically we said, like, hey, okay, after 10 minutes of the morning meeting being over, you guys should be gone. And that was the buffer they had. So it was like, okay, most people were still pretty resilient about being ready to go pretty much at the time of the morning meeting. But the guys would come in, they would sit down. We would have a morning meeting place where we would get together and we would go over the turnover from the night before. So that was a turnover I've already read. I read it out to them. They all got an email form as well. So everybody had the communication. Everybody knew what was going on. So we would talk about the turnover. We'd say what's going on. I would also line out projects for the day. Okay, so I have 4 people over here. You guys, when you guys are done, I need you to go over here and continue to build brake brass. We had an SLC and a boomerang and some other things that when you go through lots of brake brass, you're typically always building brake brass. So it's like when you're done with the day, build brake brass. That's going to be your project. We would always have a coaster or two in the shop or at a local area being torn down for refurbishment too. So other people, I might have said, oh, okay, you two people over there, I want you to go out to this ride and I want you to start to take apart the hitches today because we're taking a train down. So it's like start taking apart the hitches out there in the work bay, and then let me know how far you get by the end of the day. And then there are going to be 4 or 5 people that I have just designated, like, okay, you guys are the ride call people. Like, I am going to lean on all 4 of you, and you guys are all going to take trouble calls as much as possible throughout the day once everything comes up and running. So it's like, okay, so we kind of had this rough plan of what was happening. So I'd send the guys scattered throughout their day. It's like, okay, go off in the world, open rides, it's going to be great. So mechanics would then mechanics typically get, like, depending on the type of ride, they'll get anywhere between 2 and 12 or even 14 rides for the day to open up. Now you're just like, wow, that's a drastic difference. It's like, you're right, that is. Because if I have somebody who's really good on roller coasters, I might give them 1 to 2 roller coasters to do that morning. And you're talking from 5 a.m. to the park normally opened around 10:30. So pretty much those coasters had to be ready by 10 a.m. So you're only talking a 5-hour window. That's 2.5 hours per coaster. And we did not run multiple people on rides. So when it was 2.5 hours for a coaster, that was one person, 2.5 hours to get that entire thing done. I know I had a lot of people just spit their drink out just now. I'm like, what? You're crazy. It's like, we ran fast. We did things like that. That's just the way the park was. That's the past. It is what it is. I can't change it. So we would say, okay, yep, about 2.5 hours per major roller coaster. If they had more trains, like if our Florida's coaster had 3 trains, it would get up to like 3 hours. We give more time for that. We had a little time matrix for every single ride to know exactly how much time it would take. And this is on an average, hey, everything's thumbs up inspection. This does not account for things like blown out road wheels and brass that needed to be changed or valves that needed to be repaired. Didn't account for any of that other stuff. That's where I would look in the turnover and say, oh, if they knew that stuff right off the bat, there's going to be a leniency between the crews. It's going to be like, okay, I need more people to go do this. I need these people to do that. If the night crew pulled off a train because they're like, it has 2 bad road wheels on it, then I expect the night crew to start that repair, even do the full repair, and say, yes, we replaced those 2 road wheels. We even inspected the train. Train number 3 is sitting in the work bay ready to go for the day. Good job. Good job, night crew. But yes, I would send those people out on their way, and so the people would then take their cards and prioritize it. Someone who would say get like 12 to 14 rides, they're doing kiddie rides. They're often the little kiddie areas where you just have lots of duplicate style rides that are, for the most part, really easy to take care of. They don't really break down that much. There's not lots of huge wear and tear items. You get in a groove with those things. It's like, okay, add oil, check gearbox levels, wipe the spiders out of the things because, man, those critters work fast. And then they can do that easily, like 12, 14 rides. Yes, you can do that easily in a morning when that's your full 5-hour morning. So people would then take the rides that they have and prioritize what they needed to do. Okay, I got to do this first. I got to do that first. They start putting in their own schedule little projects that they have to do. It's like, oh yeah, I've been rotating seatbelts out on this flat ride. I want to continue today. I'm going to do another 4 seatbelts worth on those flat rides. And they build their own sub list. Now, as a supervisor, I just gave them the output. This is what I need. I need these rides done by 10 a.m. And I let them do what they needed to do. I tried not to micromanage people. When you micromanage people, it works really good for like your knowledge of knowing what's going on, but you slow the crew down so much more when you try to micromanage people. So I tried staying away from that, and I just like, nope, this is going to be their thing. I'm going to let them do it. Everyone was hired based on their ability. They're all adults. I expect them, if they have a problem, to contact me, and that was been put up front. Everyone knows up front. If they have a problem, they're supposed to contact me and say what their problem is. That way I can delegate the situation from that point. All right, so midway through the morning, things are going great. Every once in a while, you can go around the park. You'll see one particular ride running, a little ride running over here, a flat ride running over there. If it's been like 2 or 3 hours, you might hear a roller coaster running off in the background. And then mid-morning is about when I start getting calls. It's like, okay, what is it? Mechanic picks up. It's like, all right, I've got a light bulb burnt out on the panel for an indicator light, like an unlock rose button light on the key switch. It's like, okay, do you have an extra light bulb there? First question. No, I don't have an extra light bulb. It's like, okay, so I will have to go get one from inventory. Do you know what size bulb it is? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. So I start playing parts jockey. So I start going around, and if people call up and they say, hey, I need a seatbelt for this ride, I need a light bulb for this ride. This is normal stuff. Like calling up, say, oh man, I need 2 seatbelts for this ride. I need a head pad for this ride. I need some light bulbs for this ride. This is all just normal stuff. I will run interference for them. I will go back and forth to the warehouse and pick stuff up to the best that I can. If they don't know what size bulb it is, I'm like, I will hop in a golf cart, go right to the ride real quick. Say, what size bulb is it? And they're like, it's this size. And I'm like, great. Take that, and I go back to the shop. And I'm like, okay, we need to find this bulb and get them a replacement one. So I try to run interference for that. A lot of that stuff is pretty simple, those little minor things like that. If a mechanic's like, everything's good, last thing is this bulb on the panel, I'm like, I'll get it, I'll go put it in there, I'll let you know when it's done. And they go, oh, okay, great. For their sake, like go up there, unscrew the thing, put the light bulb in, it starts blinking good, put it all back together, take a picture of it illuminated, send it to the mechanic. That way they know that I got that bulb installed for them and it's good to go. We have a tracking sheet also where we would track the rides every single day. So we'd have every single ride listed, and then we'd have a column of boxes off to the right-hand side. Now, everyone's on a radio. It's all radio communication. We preferred to use numbers for who was calling in, who was calling out, and we use kind of like a police code for what was going on with the units. Now, one of the reasons is because most of those things operate on a frequency that can be found pretty much by anybody. Our place, we had across the street, kind of a dated conversation here. Across the street, there was a Radio Shack. I know, some of the younger people were like, what? And it's like, yep, it was a Radio Shack across the street. And they sold scanners. So the scanners, they would like, how do you test out a scanner? It's like, well, you let them scan until they find like random trucker traffic that was running down the highway. Or you set it to this number here and you could pick up the amusement park across the street. It's like, oh, okay, so those places always had our frequency plugged into their scanners, so they were listening to everything. Now, there's nothing worse sounding anybody else than you would say like, oh, there's this ride out here and the belt is broken on and I need to replace another one because the seatbelt just broke in half on this thing. Now, granted, stuff happens all the time. We replace that stuff. It's no big deal. Yes, the seatbelt buckle things, they'll crack apart and the plastic will come off and the whole thing just kind of falls apart in your hands. We know that happens. We replace the parts. A lot of times we have spare parts at the ride just to make the replacement real quick. It just doesn't sound good to people. So we try not to broadcast that information. So we always keep our radio conversations very short, very, very to the point. It was my radio number to somebody else's radio number. And I'll give you an example. Say 908, 951. 951, that was the mechanic I was calling. It's like, hey, 951, which 20? And they would say, floorless coaster. So now I had like, do I call them? Do I go? Let's see. Well, I want to talk with them about what's going on, but I don't want to broadcast it over the radio, so I'm going to go to a phone. And I'm like, I'll just say, just plain and simple, just call me at extension 653. Okay, 653. Give it the old 10-4, no problem. Go on. This was also the same way the park operated. The park operated when rides would break down later on. They would say it in radio code. So people that were in the park would hear the name of the ride, but then there's a code after it, and they wouldn't understand what that meant. People in the park would understand what that meant, but people outside the park wouldn't. So we would go through and we would get these calls mid-morning, and it's like, okay, when they sign the rides off, there's a piece of paper that they have to leave at the ride that says that maintenance has been there, they've cleared the ride for operation, it's okay to go. Now that is the first piece of paperwork. The second piece of paperwork is a document that the mechanic carries around that they basically have to initial every single thing on this document that says they checked the wheels, the seats, the seat belts, the framework, the webbing, the chain, the lift, the booster drives, the safety system, the air compressor, track instructor. I mean, these are long lists, sometimes 200 or 300 points long that they would have to initial every single day for every single ride. Comes out to be a lot. But the summary of that is one sheet of paper that gets left at the ride. That's the one that operations does. That's the operations checklist. They sign the operations checklist and put it in there. Then they'll call up the unit on duty. Ours was 910. So they would call me up and they say 951, 910. I'd pick up the radio and go 910. And they'd say floorless roller coaster, RTG, 64 out of 96 available. Paperwork signed. Okay, so we break that down real quick. Floorless roller coaster, the ride they called in. Then they would say RTG, ours meant ready to go. So it was ready to go. And then they would call in the units. In this case, it was 64 out of 96. We had 3 trains. So we would say, okay, it was trains. There was 2 trains available. That's 32 seats per train. So it's 32, 64. And then there's a third one, but it wasn't available. So it's 96. So in that case, I would clarify. I would call them back. Say 910, 951, 951. What's the units available? And they go, oh, sorry, 1 and 3. It's like, okay, so in that case, I knew trains 1 and 3 were in operation. Train 2 was out of service. And in this case, it's like a lot of times it's known. It's like, oh yeah, number 2's been off for weeks already. It's in refurbishment. It's no big deal. But if operations calls up in the morning and say, hey, what number trains are on the track on this ride? I call back and say it's 1 and 3. 1 and 3 are on the track today. Okay, all good information known. This is also one thing that number doesn't vary a lot for roller coasters, but a lot of times on flat rides, all the time we'll tag seats out. So on our top spin, we might have lost a pair of seats due to a pressure test. Do a pressure test, 2 seats fail. It's like, okay, tag those seats out. So it would be, the unit would call me up and they would say, top spin, RTG, 38 out of 40. It's like, okay. Now, if I didn't know there was 2 seats tagged out already, I would call them up and say, hey, call them up on the phone, on their cell phone, if they allowed us to, whatever it was. What's going on out there? And they say, oh, we did the pressure test on 2 seats and they didn't pass, so we tagged those 2 seats out. I'm like, okay, which 2 seats are they? It's like, oh, 26 and 27. Okay, 26 and 27. Cool, I know. I make little notes on the paper, and then on the paper I also write down what unit called in that stuff and then what time that was called in. That's necessary sometimes later on. So all these things will continue to happen. There's lots of radio chatter all morning about units calling in, what rides are available, what rides are coming up, what rides are done, all that other stuff. Hey, I need a little part here, I need this little part over there. The next thing that we have to get past is actually lunch. So everyone was required to take lunch, but the park wasn't open yet. So yep, it's like a lot of times around 9 o'clock in the morning, all the mechanics would have to start rotating through their lunch times, which makes it really nervous because my deadline is pretty much 10 a.m. All the rides have to be up and running by 10 a.m. And here it comes at 9 o'clock and we're going to start rotating half-hour lunches. And it's just like, oh my gosh. So anytime someone would call out for lunch, I would always call them back and say, hey, what's left on your plate? Remember, again, I didn't micromanage. So I'm like, what's left on your plate? Are you going to be okay for calling the rides up on time? Mechanics would be like, yep, I just have this ride and that ride. It should be no problem. Or I have this ride and just a run-up on that ride. A run-up on that ride means that the ride inspection's already done. They just have to go back and operate it. Sometimes that happens with things that get really cold. Call them cold-blooded rides. Cold-blooded rides, they don't work well when you operate them and then let them sit for hours on end and then just go back and ask them to run again. They need kind of like a maintenance manual mode to be warmed up. So cold-blooded rides, we typically don't sign them off and then say, oh, 3 hours later have operations show up. It doesn't work out well for those rides. So as we rotate through lunch times, then we have special rides coming up a little bit later on. A lot of times we have a carpenter crew working on the wooden roller coaster. They have their own substructure and their own manager too that went over that stuff. So they would be in contact with the mechanic that was on the wooden roller coaster to make sure that the mechanic was ready to go and the carpentry was ready to go so they could open up the ride. Wooden roller coasters were a little more difficult to deal with because they actually required a test ride to be done by the carpenters themselves. The carpenters had to test ride the wooden roller coaster to make sure the track felt okay. The mechanic just signed off the trains and the track and structure and everything because it was mechanical, but the wood takes on a life of its own. So the wooden carpenters had to go out there and ride the coaster 3 times in a row to verify that the track felt okay. So that was one of the questions I always got from people. Hey, do you guys get to test ride stuff? It's like, yeah, you do, but you have to find another mechanic to run it around for you. Kind of a pain in the butt. I was always available to go out most of the time. If a mechanic did want a test ride, they thought it was making a noise, they just wanted to feel how it was operating, I was available to go out there and run the ride for them. There's also sometimes it's very rare with maintenance. It's very rare. But there's occasionally times the maintenance just wants to ride the ride. Sue me, right? So it was like, okay, no problem. And mechanic calls me up, says, hey, I want to ride on this ride real quick. What's going on? Anything going on? No, I just want to take a ride on it real quick. If the morning's going good and everything's going fine and times are working out well and all the units are coming up on time, no problem. No, go right over there. One thing we always ask mechanics and stuff to do is it's like, when you go ride on rides, don't just sit there and flat out yell and haul your head off. We're being watched, especially since we're the only one on the ride. We're being watched, and you want to conduct yourself in a professional manner at all times. It's one of the reasons why to this day, most of the time, I could sit there just stone-faced on a ride while it's running. Just like this. You having fun on that ride? Oh yeah, love this ride. It's the best. Are you going to scream at all? No. Nope. What do you do while you're on the ride? I watch wheel carriers. I look at pivots, listen for noises. It's like, Ryan, that's really boring. It's like, yeah, it does get kind of boring after a while, especially if you're the only one on the train. It's boring. It's not as fun as a full train of people going around the track. I guarantee you of that one. So as the morning would come up, we would come up, and then I would have a morning meeting with the rest of the park. So the rest of the park, we would, just like our maintenance morning meeting, the park would get together now, and we'd have the park morning meeting. So I'd show up, and I was representing maintenance. And then there'd be another person there representing foods. There's another person there representing operations and park services and sales and ticketing and parking. Everyone was there. And the ringleader of this whole thing was referred to as the park president. That's basically the general manager of the park. That would be the person that you report all this stuff to. The park president didn't always make it to those meetings. That park president was very busy. So a lot of times they would have a person on call, which was the unit in charge, kind of like I was the unit in charge for maintenance. They had the same thing, but for the entire park. And that actually rotated through people, through the high-up directors. So they had a specific set of things they had to do as well. But so they had to get all that information back from us. Rides, how are you guys looking? We're looking good. We had several call-ins today, so we might open up these rides late. Maintenance, how you doing today? It's like, we're looking good. We're offering a good package. All of our rides are up and running. We only have one ride that's down. In fact, it was turned over to us last night that let's make up one, that the regatta broke a flex coupler. So we've got to go in and repair that, and we don't have a flex coupler. So we're got emails out to Zamperilla, They're going to get back with us here shortly, but we don't have a flex coupler on the shelf. We've got one looking around the system, trying to find if there's one at another park where they have a flex coupler. They could send it to us. And worst case scenario, we've got to call out to the manufacturer, seeing if they could ship one to us. So unfortunately, at the front gate, they have to put down that the regatta is down today. It's like, okay, that one's not going to be open. Sorry, that one's not going to be open. And then time savings for us, it was early on in the season. It was cold already, so we actually aren't going to run the Rapids ride. Rapids ride is such a cost savings not to run because it takes like 3 or 4 mechanics to open that thing up. It takes 6 ride operators to operate it throughout every shift, plus people covering for breaks and lunches. Rapids rides eat up a ton of manpower from all aspects. So anytime that thing can go down, the park's typically happy because they're saving stuff. Now, that's typically only the case, though, when it's really cold outside because they're like, nah, nobody wants to ride it anyway. So it's not a big deal. Middle of summer when it's blistering hot, they don't care. They're like, get that ride open. we want that Rapids ride open right now. So it's like, okay. So after the morning meeting breaks, now I'm starting to get ride operations is now showing up. They're showing up to rides. And now start the calls. Now this is the calls that, like, earlier I got a call that said, hey, the floorless coaster was ready to go. Remember? 2 trains available. Cool. Operations calls me up and says, when's the floorless coaster being signed off? Excuse me? What? It's been signed off already. In fact, it was signed off at 8:32 a.m. They're like, we don't have paperwork here. 9:10, 9:51, 9:51. Channel 8, we always had to talk about Channel 8. And then everyone in the flipping park went to Channel 8. Click, 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 click. It's like, yeah, everyone went to Channel 8. You signed off floorless coaster, right? Yeah, I signed that off. Did you leave the paperwork there? Yep, it's there. It's in the telephone box. Okay. Call back operations. Said it's in the telephone box. No, I'm up here right now. I'm looking for it. I don't... Oh, never mind. We found it. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Next one. Operations. The operations, a single unit that would call out everything. They call up 910. It's like, go for 910. And they would say, hey, bumper cars won't start. I look at my paperwork. And I say, well, bumper cars was signed off at 6:15 this morning. So it's like, okay, 910, 962. 962, it's like, bumper cars won't start. Can you go take a look at that? 10-4. It's like, okay. So the mechanic will run out there. And then a couple minutes later, I get a call from the mechanic again. 962, 910, 910, bumper cars RTG, 10-4, go to 8, and the whole park on the radio. What was the deal out there? Oh, they didn't have their key in. Okay, that was an operator issue. We're going to write that down as an operator issue. That is not a maintenance problem. Not a maintenance problem. But then those calls would start to multiply and intensify as the park was coming open. Operations would start doing their ride cycles because they had to do 3 ride cycles and then test ride it. Each train or whatever it might have been, they have to test ride it afterwards. So they'd be doing their ride cycles and then the ride would fault. So now it's like, okay, now I'm scurrying for people because I'm just like, all right, I've got rides that are still coming up. I've got mechanics that are still working on rides, and now I have rides that are essentially breaking down too. It's not uncommon for rides to fault first thing in the morning. Rides are like a fast, car. You can't just wake it up and go. Sometimes they need to be warmed up a little bit. We're going to exclude top fuel dragsters in this case because those things you can just wake up and go. So we'd start getting a lot of these calls in there, and this is like, okay. So I'd start shuffling mechanics all over the place. And then as the park opened up, it's like as the park would open up, we're just getting to that point, and we're waiting for the radio call that says that the park is 1026. And that means the park is cleared of all vehicles, because you got to remember in the morning time there's like, the Coke truck is down there refilling soda machines and things like that. We have Cisco in there dropping off food at some of the food stations. So park is 1026. That means all the vehicles are cleared out of there and the park is ready to open. So we would have people maybe in the front plaza area, but they're up behind the ropes while we are still getting vehicles out of the back area. And then it's inevitable that eventually someone calls up and says, hey, I can't get this golf cart or this truck out of the park. It's like, oh, crap. So then it's like, let's say if it's golf cart, it's just like, look, find the nearest backstage area and just push it back behind there. We'll leave it for the night shift and we'll tell them to go get it. It's like, okay. If it's a truck, it might be I need to run over real quick and jump on a forklift and hightail it down there, push the truck into neutral and either pull it out of the park or pull it into a back area as well and ditch it down there until the night shift can come in and take it out of the park later on. But anyways, the park is about to open, and it's maybe it's right at or like 10 o'clock opening time, 10:30 opening time, and then we have a vehicle stuck in the park. Now that is delaying rope drop. So if you've ever been in a park where it's like, hey, rope drop is supposed to happen at 11 o'clock, and it's now like 11:05 and the ropes haven't dropped yet, and everyone's sitting there like going, it's 11 o'clock. I don't know why the ropes haven't dropped. That's because the park isn't clear yet. You haven't got all the people out of there. You haven't got all the vehicles out. So they're scrambling to fix something in the background or to get vehicles clear before the ropes drop. It's like, okay. So the next thing is like, okay, the vehicle's clear. They call the park 10:26. The ropes drop. People start fanning out. It's like, okay, as mechanics come back, we start enacting our plan. Okay, you guys are going to go work on brake brass for the day. You guys are going to go work on that. And then rides start breaking down. And it's like, okay, now this is always a variable. Honestly, I found out that the more crowded the park is, the cleaner it runs. The less people that are there, the dirtier it runs. By that, I mean, like if there's only 2,500 people in the park, man, it seems like every ride does not want to run. But if there's 20,000 people in the park, it's like the park is quiet. There's nothing going on out there. I don't know why that is. I kind of have a suspicion that it's just too busy for some people to break rides down on their own. Just a suspicion. I can't confirm that. So as the park is going up, we start getting trouble calls. We will start going out to rides. We start losing units. It's like, yes, we opened one of the raft rides up with 6 seats available, and then just 30 minutes into operation, someone broke a seatbelt. So it's like, okay, it's down. Now, a lot of that is just time mitigation on my end. There's a lot of stress on the person calling the shots about this just to get the timing of this stuff correct. So it's like, okay, I go out there, the seatbelt breaks down. Do we have another seatbelt out there? Mechanic says yes or no. Can you change a seatbelt out right now? How long is that going to take? I'm asking the mechanic for an estimate. Oh man, those belts, you got to get, it's a stupid little 6mm nut on the back side. You got to get your hand all the way up behind the seat, fiberglass, and then one on the inside. And where it should be a 20mm screw, they put in a like 300mm screw. It was ridiculous. They put a huge screw inside that thing, so it takes forever to back out of there. Power tools don't necessarily make it better. Sometimes it makes it worse. So time estimates, how long is that going to take? It's going to take 20 minutes. It's like, well, if everything's going great and nothing else is going on, we're like, sure, we'll sit on top of the ride for 20 minutes while the seatbelt's fixed. And then that's back up and running. If there's a lot of stuff going on and I've already got other rides down and mechanics are needed other places, I'm going to be like, look, just tag that unit out and let's move on to the next fire because we're pushing. We're racing around the park right now. Come towards the end of my shift, I have to go into a central area now, and a lot of places do this. Some places it's automated, but a lot of places you do what's considered it's coding downtime. So we will take the list of all the downtime calls that we had throughout the morning, and I will go to an area and I will code the downtime. Hey, remember when the bumper cars wouldn't start? Well, that was down for 15 minutes. Well, actually, that was down because the operator didn't have their key. So that was coded as operational. It's operations. This one over here was an unusual noise. Oh, yep, we had a valve leaking. We had to go in there and make a repair. That's going to be mechanical. It's like, okay, this one over here, we've got a quirk air when the ride started up and then the ride aired out right afterwards. It's like, oh, yep, that's maintenance electrical. We went through that. That was maintenance electrical on that one. This one over here where the ride operator said that they heard an unusual noise. We went out there and we couldn't find anything wrong with it whatsoever. that's an operational issue. It's operations downtime. That's not maintenance downtime because we couldn't find anything wrong with it. So there's a coding of the downtime that happens. The next thing we have to do is go back while the mechanics are busy finalizing paperwork and getting projects done and things like that. The night shift comes in. Now, night shift, I say night shift again, we're only talking, it's only close to around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but the day shift is done and the night shift is coming in. So the night shift is getting ready to start this process pretty much all the way over again, just in reverse. The night shift is coming in, and the first thing they're going to look for is the turnover from the day shift. And that's where I've been working on all my notes, and I've been saying, okay, this is going on, this ride broke this, that ride has a seatbelt broken, but we tagged that unit out, here's this, here's that. And kind of the stuff that the day shift doesn't get to, we asked the night shift to see if they can get to that stuff by the end of the night. Because the way we ran our stuff, they didn't have too much time once the park closed to the time they left. There wasn't a ton of time, but there was still some time to go around and do things. Putting rides to bed at the end of the night was always quite a process to do. It takes up a lot more time than people think, but necessary. And then sometimes the night shift, like you heard at the morning meeting time, well, the night shift turned over a broken ride. Come into a ride already broken down. Coupler's broken on that regatta, so nothing we can do about it. I checked the communication in the morning time. Yep, there's the email off to Zamperilla. There's emails out to other parks looking for this thing. Nothing's happened on it yet, so it's still kind of status quo. Night shift turned over a broken regatta to the day shift. Now the day shift is going to turn over a broken regatta back to the night shift. And the cycle just repeats itself over and over again. All right, that's pretty much it for this video, but that in a nutshell is what it's like to open the park. It's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of stress, it's a lot of time management, it's a lot of individual pieces having to work together specifically to make one thing happen. It's not the easiest thing, it's not the prettiest thing. A lot of things can go wrong, and a lot of things do go wrong. So that's a rough one when you go there and like a ride's not open on time. That's probably one of those things that went wrong. So just be a little patient with things. I'm sure it'll open up. If not, hopefully it's not on the board outside, like one of those rides that just isn't going to be open for the day. Hopefully your favorite ride's not on that board. All right. Like, subscribe, comment, share, do all that stuff. It helps me out. I do appreciate it. If you want to contact me, you can always just leave a comment down below, or you can contact me at ryantheridemechanic@yahoo.com. And as always, stay off the air gates.